what Atatürk actually did. And why am I doing that? Because of what Kingsley Moghalu said in his tweet. He said there are two paths to nationhood for Nigeria. One is the possible emergence of a transformative leader in the nature of Turkey's Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, a man or woman with a transcending vision beyond our disparate tribes, who leads in a manner that restores confidence in the idea of Nigeria among citizens who make the nation, not just politicians and so on and so forth. So he mentioned that. They now mentioned another person, President Samora Machel of Mozambique, who said that, quote, "For the nation to be born and to live, the tribe must die," end quote. Now, we're going to come back to, we'll leave President Samora Machel for a second. We're just going to focus on Atatürk. So, did Atatürk do something to create a Turkish identity? Yes, he did. But the question is, what did he do? Now, when thinkers invoke names like this in conversations about nation building in a multi-ethnic state like Nigeria, you wonder why do they do things like this? Why would you want someone like this in political power in Nigeria? So I'm going to read some things to you about that man, just to understand that. See, let me put it this way. I do know that it's not all Igbos, like people say, it's not all Igbos, I get. But you see, majority of your leaders think in a particular way. Therefore, I am no longer surprised to see the regular people think in a certain way. Whether they're business leaders, political leaders, cultural leaders, they have the same rhetoric. It's a rhetoric of uniformity. It's a rhetoric of erasure. I'll read something to you this is from dailysabah.com. It's a newspaper from Turkey. There's something called the surname law in Turkey. This is one of the things that this wonderful Atatürk did in Turkey. I'll read the introduction and I'll go into the article. The 1934 surname law mandated all Turkish citizens to adopt hereditary surnames. While minorities were not legally compelled to change their names, in practice, many Armenians, Greeks, and Jews adopted Turkish names to avoid discrimination. The law prohibited reflecting non-Turkish ethnicities, effectively erasing visible markers of minority identities. This thing I just read right now actually happened in the eastern region of Nigeria around the time of independence. Before independence and into the First Republic, it happened up until 1967. Not exactly the same way Atatürk did it, but about the same idea of discrimination based on names. Let me read something to you from Sunset in Biafra by Elechi Amadi. And the reason I'm doing this is because if a person is invoking Atatürk, my very first question to people from the Southeast is this: would you want to lose your ethnic identity for the sake of one Nigeria? So there are a few things that Atatürk did to create the Turkish identity. We're going to look at some of those things, and then I'll ask you this question: would you like it to be done to your own ethnic group? Prior to 1934, Turkish families in the major urban centers had names by which they were known locally, often ending with the suffixes Zaid, Oglu, or Gil, and were used in similar manner to a surname. The surname law of 1934 enforced the use of official surnames, but also stipulated that citizens choose Turkish surnames. As a result of the law, many Greeks, Bulgarians, Albanians, Bosniaks, Jews, Arabs, Armenians, Assyrians, Georgians, Serbs, and Kurds were forced to adopt last names of a more Turkish rendition. This is from Citizenship and Identity in Turkey, from Atatürk's Republic to Present Day. It's written by Ince Basak. This was in 2012. Alright, so the point really is that they had to come up with a new identity by saying that we only want hereditary names. So let's say, for instance, you go to Igbo land and then you're told that you only want names that are Igbo, but you're in the eastern region. Let me read one of those things to you. You guys will probably find this quite interesting. So it says here This is Sunset in Biafra. To get a good job, okay. So he was talking about what happened in Eastern region at the time. He said the people of Western Cameroon broke away under intertribal pressure to join their relations on the other side of the border. For the smaller tribes, it was a nightmare. To get a good job, one had to pretend that one belonged to the big tribe, having of course learned the language as thoroughly as one could. Even so, at critical moments in one's career, such as on the eve of a really big promotion, detailed inquiries were made into tribal origins. The result of such inquiries sometimes determined one's fate, especially if the chief executive of the ministry or department was narrow-minded. So what this man is saying was actually something that was tinkered with in the old Eastern region. Not that they told people to change their surnames, though, but that you had a ceiling that you couldn't go past if you did not have a name from the majority ethnic group. So what happened is people started using names just to sound a certain way so they can get ahead in public service. That's similar to what Atatürk did in Turkey. Everybody, you must have a surname, and that surname must be Turkish. That word has to be Turkish. So as far as official records are concerned, you don't have to change it to officially. You don't have to do it to. You don't have to change your name. However, if you wanted to get ahead in society, you must have that Turkish surname. This is the person that Mogalu is saying that we should copy, because he created an identity. He created an identity for people with disparate groups and made them flow into his own group. So the way it works in a multi-ethnic state, you don't make people flow unless you conquer a people. You have no right to tell them to change themselves for you. The sad part is that the people who make these statements in Nigeria, they don't have the capacity to conquer anybody. You cannot erase another person's identity who you did not conquer.